Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping straight into the fast-moving world of general aviation. We've sifted through a whole stack of stuff, AVWeb, AIN, some podcasts, even some, quirky human interest pieces. Our goal, to give you the inside track, the stuff that actually matters, maybe even make you chuckle once or twice.
Exactly. We're here to pull out the key takeaways, the surprising bits, and connect the dots for you. We'll cover everything from, big rule changes and new tech, right down to safety must-knows and some pretty odd incidents. Basically, a solid picture of GA right now.
Okay, let's kick off with something genuinely big. It's causing quite a stir.
Yeah.
The FAA's Mosaic rule, this one, it affects a lot of people.
It really does. So a key part of Mosaic is how it redefines light sport aircraft, or LSAs. It basically throws out the old fixed weight limit. Gone. Instead, it's moving to a standard based on performance, how the plane handles slow, specifically stall speeds.
Right, so stall speeds instead of just weight. So what does that actually mean? Like, what kinds of planes now fit? And maybe the bigger question for many, the medical certificate.
Well, it opens the door much, much wider. Suddenly, we're looking at some really popular older planes. Think certain Cessna 172s, maybe even some early Cirrus SR-20s. They could potentially be flown by sport pilots now. And here's the kicker for private pilots. You might be able to fly these planes under sport pilot rules using just your driver's license. No FAA medical needed. It's a huge deal. Think about older pilots, or those with maybe some long-term health stuff. It could keep them in the cockpit safely, legally, without all the medical paperwork hassle. And, it might even help with the pilot shortage by keeping experienced folks flying longer.
Yeah, that medical aspect is definitely a game changer for some. And Mosaic isn't just about which planes, right? It spans what sport pilots can do, too.
Absolutely. With some extra training, endorsements, sport pilots are looking at flying VFR at night, operating planes with constant speed pops, even retractable gear, higher cruise speeds, too.
Wow.
Yeah, things that were completely off the table before. It really broadens their horizons.
And commercially.
Yeah.
Any impact there?
There is, actually. The rule, it cracks the door open for some limited commercial stuff for sport pilots. Things like banner towing, glider towing, maybe pipeline patrol, tasks they couldn't touch before. Plus, manufacturers get more flexibility. They can certify a wider range of new LSA designs using these consensus standards, which could mean, more modern, maybe even safer trainers coming onto the market eventually.
So as you're listening, think about this. How might this flexibility change your own path in aviation? Or just the kinds of planes you see around? Or maybe even decide to fly yourself one day? Okay, moving on. Let's get into something really exciting. Electric aviation. Feels like the future is, actually starting to arrive here.
It does. A great example is the Bristol B-23 Energic. It's an electric trainer. Reports from people who've flown it say it's really well-balanced, easy to fly, and quiet. Apparently, it makes a huge difference for students learning, helps them concentrate. Energy use is tiny, too. Something like 6 kilowatt hours for a trip around the pattern with a 360 turn. Very efficient.
And who's behind the power system for that?
That's a Swiss company, H55. They're focused on making these modular electric power systems, batteries, controllers, motors that other manufacturers can use. So BRM Aero uses them for the Bristol. CAE's putting them in Piper Archers. Harbour Air in Canada is using them for electric float planes. They're serious, too, planning big battery factories in Switzerland and Montreal.
Okay, the economics sound pretty amazing. What did you say, like $8 or $9 an hour for electricity?
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. Compare that to, $50, $60 an hour easily for gas and oil and a typical trainer. It's a massive difference.
Huge. But what about range? That's always the question with electric, right?
Right, that's the current limitation. For the B-23 Energic, we're talking about roughly 60 minutes of flight time, plus a 10-minute reserve. Now, under the FAA rules here in the U.S., you need a 30-minute reserve for VFR day. So that translates to more like 40 minutes of usable endurance.
Okay, so good for pattern work, local training, but maybe not cross-country yet.
Exactly. It's aimed squarely at the training market for now. They expect to launch in Europe in 2026, the U.S. in 2027. Price tag for early birds is around $431,000, and it'll be certified for day VFR only. And it's worth remembering, the Pipistrel Velis Electro was actually the first certified electric plane. And there are others bubbling up, like the Smart Flyer Hybrid Electric.
So beyond these specific planes, what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
This Advanced Air Mobility, or AAM, space. the air taxis and stuff.
Oh, it's buzzing. Joby Aviation just did its first piloted eVTOL flight between two public airports. That's a pretty big milestone. Elroy Air's cargo drone, the Chaparral V2L, also hit a key flight milestone. And Eve Air Mobility, that's Embraer's AAM company, they just raised $230 million and got listed on the stock exchange in Brazil. So serious money flowing in.
Seems like a lot of momentum. Any potential hurdles?
Well, yeah. The AAM Institute is planning this electric aircraft Pulitzer Cup race in Ohio, which is cool, meant to spur things on. But there are still real questions about, is the whole system ready? Air traffic control, charging infrastructure for these air taxis. And we have seen some signs of, maybe, a reality check. Textron Aviation, for instance, seems to have slowed down development on their Nexus EV tool. So it's not all smooth sailing.
And it's not just electric pushing boundaries, right? Supersonic is trying to make a comeback.
It is. Spike Aerospace is pushing ahead with work on their supersonic business jet. They're focusing on performance studies right now, so maybe those sonic booms aren't gone forever.
And quickly, drones and AI? Anything major there?
Yeah, a couple of things. Flytrex got FAA approval for drone delivery beyond where the operator can see it, BVLOS. That's a big step. Makes them only the fourth company allowed to do that in the U.S. They're talking about expanding to reach over 100 million people.
Wow, package delivery by drone is getting real.
Seems like it. And drones are also changing how we inspect aircraft. Plus, AI is creeping into the cockpit. Daedalian has this AI system that's supposed to act like extra eyes for the pilot, improving situational awareness.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Pivot to safety. Always critical in aviation, starting with cockpit automation, specifically that APR key on GPS approaches.
Ah, yes, the APR key. There's a really persistent myth about this one. A lot of pilots think pressing APR activates the GPS approach. That's just not what it does.
Okay, so what does it do then?
It's part of the autopilot system, the AFCS. Pressing APR arms the autopilot's modes, lateral and vertical, so it's ready to capture and follow the approach path that the GPS is navigating. Think of it like this: apples and oranges. The GPS functions activating the approach, sequencing waypoints, changing the CDI sensitivity. Those are the apples. The autopilot functions heading mode, nag mode, altitude hold, and the APR mode. Those are the oranges. The APR button tells the autopilot, get ready to follow the path the GPS gives you. It doesn't tell the GPS to give the path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, apples and oranges. GPS provides the path. APR tells the autopilot to get ready to follow it.
Got it. So where do pilots typically mess this up? In training, on check rides.
Common errors. Pressing it too early or too late, which can mess up the arming sequence, sometimes disarming modes you wanted active. Forgetting to take the GPS out of OBS or suspend mode if they were holding. Mishandling the SUSP key generally. And, the FAA expects even private pilot applicants to have a basic handle on the automation in the plane they're flying.
So how do you avoid getting tripped up by the automation? Automation surprise, they call it.
Good habits help. Always keep your active flight plan visible if you can. Always check the annunciator panel of the scoreboard before you push a button and after to confirm it did what you expected. That look habit is key. And honestly, a lot of times the simplest way to start an approach is just to go direct to the initial approach fix, the IAF or IF. Let the GPS sequence from there, then worry about arming the autopilot with APR at the right time. Don't overcomplicate it by trying to hit activate approach if Direct 2 works. Okay, that's really helpful in automation. Now, another critical safety factor, maybe less talked about sometimes, medications. And not just the illegal stuff.
No, absolutely. This is huge. Dr. John Trowbridge has highlighted some pretty stark numbers. Up to 40% of fatal GA accidents involve pilots who had impairing substances in their system. And often, it's legal stuff.
40%. That's staggering.
It is. And a big part of the problem is that many pilots, and sometimes even the regular doctors, just don't know the FAA's specific rules about wait times after taking meds. There's the FAA's 5X rule. Basically, you have to wait 5 times the recommended time between doses before you fly.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Say a medication says take every 6 hours. You have to wait 5 times 6, so 30 hours, after your last dose before flying. If it's a once-a-day, 24-hour medication, that's 5 full days you need to wait.
5 days for a daily medication. Wow. Okay, so what are some common culprits?
Well, a big one is first-generation antihistamines. Think Benadryl diphenhydramine. It's highly sedating. And it's hidden in a lot of over-the-counter sleep aids people might just grab without thinking. Alarmingly, it's the most common OTC drug found in pilots involved in fatal GA accidents.
Even the non-drowsy ones.
Even the newer second-gen ones, like Zyrtec. They can still cause subtle sedation in some people, especially if you mix them with alcohol. The effects might not be obvious, but they can impair judgment just enough.
So the takeaway for pilots is,
Be incredibly careful. Research any medication you take, prescription or over-the-counter. Talk to your aviation medical examiner, your AME. They know the FAA rules. Even talk to your pharmacist. Ask about side effects, cognitive impacts, interactions. Don't guess. Your medical certificate and, more importantly, your life could depend on it.
okay, really crucial advice there. Let's shift to flying smarter, maybe farther. Dr. Catherine Cavagnaro had some interesting points on cross-country planning.
Yeah, her insights are great. She points out that pilots often just default to lower altitudes, maybe 6,000 or 8,000 feet, or just fly GPS direct everywhere without thinking it through.
And that's not always best.
Not necessarily, no. Flying higher can make a huge difference in efficiency, both time and fuel. Her example was a 650-mile trip. Cruising way up at 12,000 feet might save enough fuel that you skip a fuel stop entirely. So even though climbing takes time, the total trip time ends up being shorter.
Interesting trade-off. What about sticking to airways versus just going direct?
Victor Airways might seem old school with GPS direct available, but especially over mountains or remote areas, they often provide much safer routing. They keep you clear of terrain and usually closer to potential emergency landing spots compared to a straight GPS line that might cut across some really nasty territory.
Right, safety margins. And she mentioned oxygen too, didn't she? Not just when it's legally required.
Yeah, absolutely. The legal requirement kicks in at 12,500 for pilots after 30 minutes and always above 14,000. But the benefits of supplemental oxygen start much lower. Even using it above, say, 9,000 feet, especially at night, can really boost alertness, improve decision-making, and cut down on that tired feeling after a long flight.
Makes sense. Any other key planning tips from her?
Just reinforcing the basics, really. Always build outs into your plan. Know your alternates, your decision points, and using a good pre-flight checklist like her 5 Fs for the go-no-go decision. Fuel, facilities, fitness.
It's fatigue being the hardest one to judge yourself on.
Exactly. Fatigue is insidious. It's really tough to accurately assess how tired you actually are, so be conservative.
Okay, so we've talked about individual choices, automation, meds, planning. How does this tie into the bigger picture of safety systems? Accidents often reveal systemic issues, right?
They absolutely do. The Pasadena Police Department helicopter collision is a stark example of safety management systems, or SMS, principles in action or maybe inaction.
What happened there?
You had two helicopters collide on the ground at their own heliport, and the pilots involved were incredibly experienced. One had over 16,000 hours, the other over 13,000.
Wow, so not inexperienced pilots.
Not at all. The investigation pointed to something called normalization of deviance. Basically, because of some poor drainage on the ramp, it had become common practice, the norm, to park the helicopters just slightly outside their designated painted spots. Everyone did it. Combine that routine deviation with procedures where pilots weren't always monitoring the common radio frequency while maneuvering on the ground, and disaster struck. It wasn't one single massive error, but small deviations becoming accepted practice.
That's chilling. Normalization of deviance. You see echoes of that elsewhere.
You do. Look at some Cirrus SR-22 accidents. We saw one where a very experienced pilot pushed a visual approach into basically zero visibility conditions, maybe thinking, I can handle this, and stalled. Another involved a newly minted pilot deploying the airframe parachute, the CIPS system, but way, way too fast, far above its maximum deployment speed, leading to structural failure. In both cases, maybe assumptions were made or procedures weren't strictly followed, possibly due to perceived experience or pressure.
So what's the big SMS takeaway from all this?
It's that true safety isn't just about not having accidents. It's about actively having defenses in place. It's about having a system and awareness that constantly looks for hazards, questions assumptions like, we always do it this way, and ensures that convenience or habit doesn't trump sound procedures and risk management.
Right. A proactive approach, not just reactive.
Right.
Okay, let's completely switch gears now to a really weird aircraft ownership story, the Cessna theft saga. This one sounds bizarre.
Oh, it is truly strange. So picture this. Jason Hong owns a classic 1958 Cessna Skyhawk down in Southern California. First, it gets stolen from Corona Municipal Airport, just vanishes.
Okay, plane theft happens, unfortunately.
Right. But then it's found a few days later at Brackett Field Airport, about 23 miles away. Okay, weird, but maybe joyriders. So Hong gets it back, and to prevent it happening again, he removes the battery. Smart move, right?
Seems logical. No battery, no start.
You'd think, but then it gets stolen again.
Yeah.
From Brackett Field this time. And it's found again, this time at San Gabriel Valley Airport, another 18 miles away. But here's the truly baffling part. The thief had installed a brand new battery, a battery that would cost several $100s.
Wait, what? They stole it, flew it somewhere else, and bought in a new battery? That makes zero sense.
Exactly. Why steal it just to move it? Why return it the first time? And why on earth spend your own money to replace a part on a plane you just stole?
Any leads at all?
Almost none. Hong thinks the thief must know something about planes, flying, maybe maintenance. The only tiny shred of a clue is someone at San Gabriel Valley Airport remembers seeing a petite, middle-aged woman just sitting in the plane's cockpit a few times before it was found there the second time. But no security footage, nothing concrete. Authorities are stumped.
That is just baffling. What does it say about airport security for older GA planes?
Well, it certainly highlights that maybe we can't assume these older planes are safe just because they're not high-tech. It underscores a need for vigilance, maybe better locking mechanisms, or just more awareness. It's a real head-scratcher.
Okay, from a bizarre theft to a potentially catastrophic maintenance issue that was actually solved. The Bonanza Reservator problem.
Yeah, this was a serious threat hanging over thousands of airplane owners. We're talking about the V-tail Bonanzas, over 5,000 of them flying. The problem was the unique ruddervators on the V-tail are made of magnesium skins. And Textron, the manufacturer, stopped making replacement skins.
Why was that such a big deal? Can't they be repaired?
Not easily. The original magnesium alloy thickness isn't readily available anymore. And more importantly, the chemical process used to harden and protect those skins is environmentally hazardous and pretty much obsolete. So even minor hanger rash or bird strike damage could potentially ground a plane permanently because you just couldn't get new skins or repair the old ones properly. It was a huge cloud over the fleet.
So how do they solve this? It sounds like a dead end.
It almost was. But the community stepped up, specifically the American Bonanza Society's Air Safety Foundation. They put up a huge prize, $500,000, the Maciel Ruddervator Prize, and they awarded it to a company called SRS Aviation up in Minnesota. SRS developed their own proprietary process to safely harden new magnesium skins in a way that met FAA approval. To win the prize, SRS had to get FAA certification for replacement skins for all 3 different designs of the V-tail ruddervator and actually produce at least 100 sets. A massive effort.
That's incredible. A user group basically funding the R&D to save their planes?
Absolutely. And it shows how serious the problem was. It was tanking aircraft values, messing with insurance. And interestingly, after the ABS announced this prize and SRS started making progress, Textron actually did resume limited production of the original skins too. So the pressure clearly worked. It really speaks volumes about the passion and ingenuity within the GA community.
Amazing story. Now, sticking with Bonanzas, what about learning to fly in one? Is that a good idea for someone maybe looking to buy one eventually?
Tom Turner from the ABS Foundation weighed in on this. He says, yeah, training in the plane you intend to fly can definitely lead to better proficiency in that specific type, which insurance companies like to see.
There's a catch.
There can be. Especially with older Bonanzas, many weren't originally equipped with dual flight controls or co-pilot brakes, which you absolutely need for flight instruction. Adding those systems later is really expensive and complex. So finding an instructable Bonanza might be tricky. Tom's point was often the sheer convenience and consistency of your training location and instructor matter more for making steady progress as a student than the specific make and model, as long as it's a suitable trainer.
Good practical advice. And just quickly, any broader market trends or cool new products catching your eye?
Yeah, a couple of quick hits. Business jet market seems to be looking up. According to a recent IAD survey, more confidence there. We're seeing infrastructure growth. Dallas Love Field's FBO is adding more hangars, and there's talk of a new airport potentially easing hangar shortages down in coastal Georgia. Always good news.
And new gear for pilots.
Definitely. Lightspeed just came out with their new Zulu 4 headset, always popular. And Apereo updated their portable ADS-B receiver, the Stratus 4. It's got some neat new tricks like a color touchscreen and even integrates with Apple's Find My network, so you hopefully won't lose it.
Okay, wow. We have covered a ton of ground today. From Mosaic, totally changing the landscape for sport pilots and medicals, to the bleeding edge of electric flight, AI, critical safety deep dives on automation and meds, and some truly unique ownership and maintenance tales. Quite the journey.
It really has been, and it just hammers home, doesn't it? Aviation is never static. It's always evolving. Staying informed, being vigilant, being adaptable. It's just crucial for everyone involved, whether you're a pilot, an owner, or just an enthusiast. It's really a story of constant innovation and hopefully an ever stronger focus on safety.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Considering everything we've talked about, the speed of change with electric flight, AI coming into the cockpit, rules like Mosaic rewriting possibilities, How might your own approach to flying or learning to fly, or even just how you think about air travel, how might that shift in the next, say, 5 years? And what steps could you maybe take now to stay ahead of the curve and really be part of this unfolding future? Something to chew on?